Hello and welcome to the D3 podcast. This is your host, Matt, joined as always by John, Kevin, and Sam. How's it going, boys?
It's good. It's good.
Vibing.
Super duper. That was the most unenthusiastic shit I've ever heard.
Survive!
I want you to do a line of pre-workout right now and just get hands. Guys, we have an all NBA discussion episode for you guys. First team, second team, third team. I think for the first team, we're all like very much the same kind of, with maybe one exception, for John, of course. So why don't we right now? John, why don't you give us your first NBA or all NBA team?
All right, yeah. So my first team, I went with Dame, had to have him, Luka, and Giannis, Kawhi, Jokic. I'm curious. Obviously, the one that I know we all have different here is me having Luka. I put Luka in that first spot, and I would argue it's because. Again, for obvious, my shirt has his name on it right now. I get it. Like, it's a meme at this point, but like, he's been great. He's been honestly even better than he was last year, even though like the raw numbers are about the same. He's shooting like, what was it? There was like that Kevin O'Connor just did a breakdown video where he said he's shooting like 38% or something on step back threes. And he's taking them from like an average distance of like 27 plus feet. Like, that's insane. So I just think that, like, he's finally become a shooter, like, worth the volume that he's shooting at from full. And I also think he's better defensively this year. He's clearly leading to winning right now. Like we said before, like, this team would probably be, I think they're like a 4 seed in the East. And so they're just in a hard conference. Yeah, I gotta give it to Luka, but it's splitting hairs, and so I'm the other one that we can talk about too after this. It looks like we have kind of a divide between LeBron and Kawhi, but anyway, yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I did not see that one. I think that one should have been obvious. I didn't even think about that. So the big one was that Luka. I think for Kevin, Sam, and I, we all had Harden in there instead of Luka. Again, like John said, splitting hairs, honestly. For me, it's just like Harden is having such a fucking great time. He's been killing it. He's been on fire this year. Sam, what was your argument for what made you want to have Harden in there instead of Luka?
Yeah, like I really did think about putting Luka, honestly. Just kind of thinking about it. But I put Harden. I just think the way he really changed his game, like in the span of like 24 hours since like being traded. Maybe he was always there and we just didn't see it because he was just a perennial all-star for the Houston Rockets. But I think seeing him in the Nets jersey and the way that he's playing as like, it just seems like he's reborn in a way. And I just thought the way he's been playing has been very explosive. It's a shame that he had a hamstring injury because I think he honestly could have been MVP talks. I think he could be easily top 3 at that point, just in terms of health. But I just think James Harden somehow, he reminds me of LeBron in the sense, and this is kind of a little bit of a stretch, but he's evolved, right? Every time we've seen LeBron evolve, maybe every 4 years into a different type of player. And I think this could be our best James Harden. Like scoring James Harden is fun, but I actually really enjoy like point guard James Harden a lot more. And I think he's in the perfect team, right? I know he's with other all-star superstar talents, but I think even if he was in Philly or whatever it is, I think he would have seen something similar, and I think that would have been really fun to see. And that's not the bash Luka. Luka, we've seen the past. We all know the past I'm talking about. You don't do that. You don't do that unless you're European. Like you're Manu Ginobili or Luka, and that's really it. And I think it honestly just comes down to record at that point, and it's kind of sad because it's not really a good standard to measure someone. But Luka's been carrying this team, and they were in the depths, and they're playoff team, and I don't really blame you for your selection as a 6-7 seed either. But I just think James Harden has been a real game changer for this Nets team. Like I think he actually really elevated them, which is kind of weird to say.
Yeah, as far as the majority of us, I think we have Harden in there. But in all honesty, if we're talking about just like overall, like being on the referee's nice list, I think Luka just very much so broke the game completely. We've all seen the memes of Luka sweet talking all the refs, and he just does a great job of it. I mean, he kills it, man.
Luca, I mean, like, I think he's got to be like one of the most likable players in the league.
Yeah.
I don't know. He just like is a goofy dude. Like,
No,
Point guard does not want to deal with him. Montrezl Harrell. Hey, want to start some beef?
yeah. But I am curious.
All right,
like, so Matt and I both have Kawhi on our first team. You both have LeBron. This was one that it was another one where I was like, I don't know exactly which way to go. And LeBron's injury did play a huge part in my decision. But I guess I'm curious, like, where you guys landed on that.
At least on my end, I think realistically, by the time the season ends, I think LeBron will miss only a few more games than Kawhi. So I kind of took that into weight. I think that's kind of like my differential. Kawhi's having a phenomenal season too. Is just not enough spots, and I just think LeBron has been a clear impact. There's been no narrative about the Clippers, and I think that's good and bad in some cases. They've had a lot of bad narratives since that 50-point loss, the Paul George fall apart. But for me personally, it does hit me hard that Kawhi doesn't talk a lot, and I know he's not a vocal person, and I think it's really detrimental to the team, and because they have to pick up these trash players like Rajon Rondo to be a voice, and he's just been here for 3 days. As injured, the team's just kind of broken at this point. But I just feel like LeBron's impact overall, and I know we said it, and I'm a broken record at this point, but I just think LeBron has been past our expectations, which is weird to say because I think we still consider LeBron as one of the best players in the NBA. But I think he's really did pass all of our expectations, and he was on an MVP run. So I just kind of weigh it off as I think realistically with the injury, I think they'd still missed about the same amount of games.
Kevin, are you on the same page?
Yeah, I was going to say, in general, the same thing as Sam said. I think the biggest thing for me is when LeBron is on the court and with that team, I think he elevates everyone else on his team up to his level a little bit, and so he helps that team win games much, much more, or maybe not much more, but significantly enough more than Kawhi in my mind. Like, Kawhi's an unbelievable player, and it's very arguable to say he deserves a first team spot, and I will not argue against that too hard, but I think it comes down to LeBron improves himself when he's on the court and other team members around him, whereas Kawhi is just God tier Kawhi when he's on the court. But he's not bringing up Paul George. He's not bringing up the other players on his team as much as LeBron is, I think.
I guess I understand that, but I guess as a player overall, I feel like Kawhi has proven himself to be a bit better than LeBron as far as just like player stats.
I don't know if that's true though. I just think that I'm a Kawhi hater. I'm a Matt hater. No, I'm just kidding. I don't hate Matt.
No, I get it. That's fine.
I don't know if that's completely true. I don't think that's. I think you really can't weigh LeBron's impact on a game. I think it's so genuinely valuable. I think it's honestly the Chris Paul tier now, right? I think we can weigh Chris Paul's who has been in an MVP discussion, which is ridiculous, right? In a way, but is it really ridiculous? Because the way he's been performing is actually, I think he is the reason the Phoenix Suns are a 2 seed. Like, they didn't have that kind of, it's not even star power, but it's that IQ that's generational. Like, you don't get that kind of gameplay, that kind of mindset, which
Sure.
That's not the best Kawhi, but I just think Kawhi's game style I don't think he was born ready, honestly. I don't think he was born ready in this sense because the Spurs culture did shape him up. We got him a shot, and I think that does play a role. He's a really humble dude, but I think that does play a role in his story as well.
Yeah, I also think the thing that played a role in this was that Sam will never, ever, ever be okay with Kawhi after what happened with the Spurs, and I think that plays a little bit of part in your list making, Sam.
The Spurs are the reason Kawhi is good. Okay,
it's kind of true.
Just saying. How did you get Finals MVP? That's right.
John, you had Kawhi over LeBron mainly because of LeBron's injury.
Yeah, I think that LeBron is still 3 weeks out. Kawhi's. So I looked right now, LeBron's played 41 games. Kawhi's played 45. LeBron still has 3 weeks to go, so I think that he's just going to miss a lot of games. Like it really is a lot of games that LeBron will have missed. Yeah. I don't know if it'll be like that close, but I don't think I fault anyone for having LeBron on first team because he's LeBron James and he's been LeBron James all year. But for me, it's like, okay, Kawhi is definitely the best player on the Clippers. Clippers have been really, really good this year, like under discussed for the same reason the Bucks have. Same reason with Giannis, where it's just like we just don't trust them in the playoffs, so why are we even talking about them? But I think Kawhi's been really good, and I think he's definitely deserving of the spot. And he's been more available than he's been in the past like 2 or 3 years, which is, grading on a curve maybe, but like it's still that's something I think.
So I do have a question, and maybe this is an obvious answer. Why no KD? Why no Kevin Durant?
He's not played like any. I think he's played maybe like 20 games this year or something.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Otherwise, I would love to have him on there, but yeah, he just hasn't played.
That totally makes sense. That totally makes sense. We have our second team All NBA. John, I'll have you. I think for right now, John, I'm looking at your list right now, and I think the second team we are all. We're pretty much all the same except for the LeBron and LeBron and Kawhi, and then Luka and Harden. That seems to be the only difference with these lists. So, John, why don't you go over who you put in your second team?
Yeah, so I have Steph, which was an easy choice for me. I would have put Steph. I considered Steph for first team, but the Warriors are abysmal, and I just he's the only reason they're not like a straight up lottery dump team. Like that's it. That's all there is to it. Steph's awesome. Second team. Sorry, your team's awful. But then I have Harden. I have LeBron, I have Zion, and I have Embiid. And I think it's very interesting that we all have Zion on second team, actually. I think that I found that to be like pretty, like everything else made a lot of sense to me. Mm-hmm. But I had a really hard time with the second forward spot. I put Zion there, but it was something I had to really think about for a while just because like, again, the Pelicans are terrible, but Zion's dominant.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was gonna say. For me, it's like tiers of skill level, and I like the tier one, like LeBron, Kawhi, Giannis. Like they're on the same tier, and you can kind of pick and choose which ones you want on the first team or second team. Then, in my mind, Zion is literally like in a weird middle tier of his own. He's not quite at the Harden Kawhi level, but I think he's better than just about any other forward out there right now. I think he's better than Tatum. He's better than Paul George for sure. Don't even
don't at me, baby.
He, in my mind, he was a pretty easy pick because I think he's that fourth best person. You can argue about the top three forwards as much as you want and move them around a bunch. And then I think he's solid at the fourth spot. And then you can argue about anything below him. I think he's just so dominant right now that even though his team is absolute garbage, you can't knock him with the numbers he's putting up.
But sure. Is he better than LaMelo Ball?
That's the real question right there.
I don't want to. All right, goodbye. I'm leaving.
I agree with everything you said, by the way. Though I still, I guess we'll be able to talk about it more on third team, but yeah.
Who are you gonna have instead of Zion?
For me, I was genuinely like. And I know this is also tricky just because the Celtics have been terrible, but I really thought about putting Jason Tatum there. Because right now, and like, as far as just like being a dominant force, I think Zion is kind of just a tier above him, but it's like Tatum is, he's like one of the best scorers in the league. He's become a much better He's definitely like grown as a facilitator, and I think like defensively he's much better than Zion right now. And so that's part of why I thought of I was a little conflicted, but Zion's dominance won me over. I just like can't. It's hard to deny it, especially when you saw that game he had against Philly when he went he put up what was it, 35, 15 and 8 or some shit like that. It was insane. And they put the ball in his hand, and for someone like that to have guard skills is just insane. And it's it was a little tricky, but I just have a hard time saying no to Zion. He's just he's such a great force at this position.
Yeah, and I think now looking back at that top 20, under 25 list, I mean, it's kind of tough because I feel like Zion hasn't developed the bag yet of tricks. We're seeing it a little bit, little by little. But I think Jason Tatum's actually the guy we've been waiting for in terms of an all-around player. I think that's the guy we've been wanting to have. That's why I wouldn't be surprised if someone put Zion right below Tatum and limit 4. I would be okay with that because I just think that the longevity of Jason Tatum will be pure dominance like Zion, but Zion doesn't have the bag yet. I don't think he has that bag of tricks just yet. Maybe in a year or so with the right trainers, I think he can. If he develops a shot, it's going to be game over.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, though, that would be fucking wild. So it looks like the biggest thing for that one was basically just it was very interesting for Zion to be in there. But other than that, it looks like all of our lists are practically the same.
Go ahead, John. One question.
Yeah.
So if Embiid didn't get injured, say we did this a couple weeks ago, who would you have between the first? Is the deciding factor of Embiid on second team, is it purely just his injury? Would you have put him above Jokic?
I would have put him above Jokic if there was no injury. And that's and that I'm only saying that very confidently just because of what Embiid has done. But that was the biggest problem. That was the biggest problem in the playoffs is he going to be healthy? Can he stay healthy? And that's his biggest thing. But he was just so good in the start of the year and whatnot until the injury. And it's a weird thing to say, but I feel like Jokic is kind of, I mean, he honestly, at this point, Jokic is so goddamn good. I wouldn't be surprised. I guess it's the same thing with you, John, as far as Harden and Luka go. I think they're just interchangeable at that point. If you gave it to Jokic, I'd be like, yeah, sure. If you gave it to Embiid, I'm like, yes, for sure, absolutely. But if there was no injury, I have a feeling, I have a gut feeling that Embiid could have been that number one spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a toss-up because now, if you look back, you're how can you take away the dominance of Nikola Jokic and just what he's done with this Denver Nuggets team? It's been kind of unreal just with the rocky start that they had. But you also can't really doubt what Joel Embiid's kind of the thing we've been waiting for so long. It's not just the health, but the health in terms of can you just stay on the court and be effective in the fourth quarter? And I think we're seeing that. And I think that was the missing piece is that can you just not be lazy? And that's really bad for me to say because I'm 5'7" and don't play basketball to that level. But I think that was the missing factor because every time we saw him play in the playoffs in the fourth quarter, he takes the worst shots possible and then costs the game every time. And then they realize they don't have actual shooters, and their best shooter was the guy they got rid of with Jimmy Butler. And I think that team could have been an actual championship team to maybe combat the Nets at that point. But I think I still would have put Joel Embiid. I just think that the level that he's taken off to it's been more than Nikola Jokic. I think Nikola Jokic has had the bag for a while, and then I think it just comes down to small market at that point. They're just not giving enough love.
That's fair. The third team, this is the one where we are the most diverse. And John, you can go. I'll have you go first. I think yours is the one that actually no. Kevin's is the one that's the hottest take. Honestly, Kevin's is the hottest. So I'm gonna go.
I tried to make mine a little bit real hot.
Yeah, I figured as much.
And I'll be honest, I don't even know if I say that Kevin's is crazy hot. Sometimes it's stuff that I wish that I just had. I just wish that I did it too, but I couldn't because here's my list. So I have Donovan Mitchell because I do think he's taken a bit of a leap this year. He's kind of the offensive engine of that Utah Jazz team that's in the 1 seed. I have Chris Paul because Chris Paul, I don't think he's missed a game this year, and he has the Suns in the 2nd seed in the West, which is insane. It's a team that literally missed the playoffs last year, and they're the second seed in the Western Conference, and a lot of that is Chris Paul. And I'm already excited to talk about snubs after this because there's so many people I wish I could include. But then I have Paul George, I have Jason Tatum, and I have Rudy Gobert.
Okay. So I think for all of us, except for Kevin, we all have Gobert. We all have Paul George, again, except for Kevin. And then we all have Chris Paul. So those ones we'll get into, and I'll have Kevin try and defend himself. I don't think he can for that one. The one that's very interesting for me is the fact that you guys had the disrespect to not put Zach LaVine. I'm just kidding. I got to give Zach LaVine love. I got to give him the love just because of how well he's been playing this year. I think we said it earlier today that he's only missed like one game this season, which is almost unheard of. Like, that's pretty wild. The guy just had a 50-point game. Unfortunately, they lost. That really fucking sucks. But he has been killing it this year. I kind of just got to give it to him just for the fact that he has just grown so much and like outplayed my expectations of him because I only expected him to get worse. So I got to give props to him for this one.
I appreciate that. Yeah. But the thing is, for me, when I was looking at that, I also wanted to do the Homer thing.
Yeah.
But then I was like, is he doing anything that Bradley Beal's not? Like, is he like that, like doing it at like slightly higher level? Like, I don't know.
You're not wrong. So we have that one. Kevin, you have the very clear Bradley Beal. I don't think anybody would argue with that one. However, I think Kyrie, you're going to need to talk about a little bit.
Okay, first off, I do think Chris Paul kind of does deserve a spot here. Like, that's a good, perfect spot for Chris Paul. As much as I like to shit on him, blah, 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 insert Ricky Rubio joke here. Chris Paul's done a phenomenal job this season. He is leading that Suns team perfectly. He's doing what I think everyone wanted him to do in Houston. Now he's doing what people expected him to do in Phoenix. And I love to see it. He's really found his spot there. So he definitely deserves a spot. I don't disagree with you guys on that. But I put Kyrie on there just in terms of pure domination. Yeah, maybe Kyrie's missed more games than Chris Paul. Okay. But when Kyrie's on the court this year, he's dropping 30 points. He's working the entire defense to their end. Like, he is playing something like he is exceeding all of our expectations, I think, and we already had high expectations for Kyrie. I think Chris Paul is also exceeding expectations, but in a more controlled way, whereas Kyrie's like, I don't know anyone that expected him to blow up like this year, and so I kind of got to give him respect for that. But yeah, I think Chris Paul is also a good one to put here. Paul George shouldn't even be considered for this list.
All right.
20 points a game, the same thing he's done every year for the past 8 years.
Playoff P.
Literally the same thing, and he's going to choke in the playoffs. Done.
All right. Well, we all have Jason Tatum on our list, so we can. I mean, that's a pretty clear one. We've talked about him enough, especially last episode. He is wonderful.
I do have a quick question.
Yeah.
Do you think Jason Tatum will ever? When do you think Jason Tatum will cross into not the third team? Like, when do you think he'll get into the second team or first team? Because it's going to be pretty stacked for the next few years.
When he's off.
And Kevin Durant's going to be in consideration next year, probably.
Well, did you hear this from Kevin? Kevin, please be interesting.
When he's not on a shit team like the Celtics, then he'll be on the second team when he could actually lead a team of good players that isn't just Jaylen Brown.
No.
Okay. So Kevin's saying the Suns to the Lakers like everyone else. Okay, I got you.
Let's get it.
I think that's a really interesting question, and I don't honestly know that it happens for a while. If Kevin Durant can put together a healthy season, he's a lock for a first or second team. You know, if LeBron is still playing like this, LeBron's our lock. Same with Kawhi. Zion, I think, will be more likely to get that spot than Tatum. So it's like there's kind of a logjam there where it's going to come down to, I bet, say one of those guys gets hurt, then I think Tatum has an opportunity to get in there. Or maybe Tatum has an insane season and gets in there. But I feel like it's just tough because the best forwards in the league are kind of basically the best players in the league. Like they're kind of, and it also depends on when Anthony Davis is healthy again. Sometimes like his voting, he might be voted as a forward because he insists he's a power forward. So he might still be getting a forward spot. Like it's really hard. It's really hard to get in there as a forward and as a guard. Like everything is really, really, really stacked. And I think that's a great question because you'd think he definitely has the talent to get there, but it's like, I don't know when he will.
I would probably say like maybe 3-4 years, depending on how well he progresses, because that's maybe the timeline that LeBron has. So then maybe you can take LeBron off that possibility. I mean, like in real life,
I didn't even say Giannis in there, so that's another one.
Yeah, that's another one.
Anthony Davis when he's healthy.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I think Jason Tatum can beat Anthony Davis. I think he can. I think Jason Tatum has the potential to get one over Anthony Davis. I don't know when that happens, but I think
good luck.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly. That's a lot to say.
I think if he's the first time he gets in there, I think it's going to be because someone else is injured, and and that's like it sucks because it's not like I don't want to knock Jason Tatum, but like there's just a lot of great there's like a lot of the best forwards in the league are like all-time great players. Like
that's true.
So Sam, you have Jaylen Brown, and I don't think any of us would argue that Jaylen Brown would do. Like, are we good with Jaylen Brown being in the third? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it makes sense to me. Kevin, does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Oh wait, who has Jaylen Brown in the third team?
That'd be Sam.
I do.
Oh, I thought you had.
I will say 2 Celtics.
Oh, okay. I saw. I think of for some reason Jaylen Brown in my mind is a forward, like he's a small forward, but so I was looking at the Sam's list and I was like, Jaylen Brown isn't in there. What are you talking about?
I think the interesting thing though is that you have Julius Randle, who has been playing out of his mind this year. Why don't you hype him up a little bit, Sam?
Look, going along the lines of our dear Kevin O'Brien, we will never respect Paul George. I did put him on there, but I thought about it and I was like, realistically, they put up the same stats, and Julius Randle is the star on a team compared to the Clippers. So I had to get Julius Randle there. And is this where I go on my Knicks rant again? Like I do that every other episode, but is this where I do it again? But yeah, you guys get the big picture. I think Julius Randle, there's not that many, like the forwards kind of trickle down. The positions get kind of tricky. If Jimmy Butler played a lot more games, I think maybe he could have had this role. Because he as soon as he came back, it's been like mind blowing how well he's been playing. But I know there's some doubts with the whole Celtics thing, having 2 Celtics. I get it. I just think that it's like we have to give Jason Tatum the obvious selection. I just feel like Jaylen Brown should be in the most improved player discussion too, because I just think he did ramp up his game pretty crazily. At least in the first half of the season, it did kind of slow down a little bit, but I just want to give props in terms of that jump he made, because I think it was actually very notable to even attract other teams to trade for him. I think that he could be a face. I don't think he'll be as good, in my opinion, but I think he's that impactful in terms of tradability now. I think he's a big trade chip.
Yeah. Kevin, I'm looking at your team, and the only thing that I want to disrespect the shit out of is Middleton. I'm not entirely sure why you would put Middleton. Look, I love him as a player, but I just don't think he's third team. I don't know. I can't put him there.
Yo, that's whack. That's whack.
I don't hate it.
I don't. Yeah.
Yo, he can outscore any of these other forwards we're talking about. He can outscore Randall. He can outscore Paul George every day of his life. He can outscore Paul George.
He just chooses not to.
Yeah. He knows he's the second guy for Giannis, so he's gonna try and help Giannis out. He doesn't care about himself at all. He has no ego. He wants to make the team win, which I respect the shit out of. And I don't think Paul George has that at all. I think Paul George wants to be that guy. He wants to be the guy taking the last second shot. As he said explicitly, he wants to be that guy. Chris Middleton doesn't give a fuck who takes the last shot as long as the team is winning. So I am always going to put him over Paul George. And he still is I think he's a really consistent shooter, really consistent scorer from a lot of different spots on the floor. And I think he's a great pair to Giannis on that team. And he's better than Paul George. Done.
Him and Paul George have a very similar issue where when they have a bad game, they have a terrible game. And when it's bad, it's like awful. And that happens in the playoffs a lot too. And it's just like, it's really hard. You know, a lot of like NBA writers will be like, no, guys, I promise, like Chris Middleton's really good. Like he's a 50, 40, 90 guy. Like he's legit. And then like it gets to the playoffs and he like always has at least like one game where it's just like an absolute disaster. And I'm like, I want to love Chris Middleton. I want to like believe all the hype, but it's hard for me to get on there. And part of that is because of his role. Like he's the second guy.
I agree, but he can also have games like I think it was last year in the playoffs during the bubble where Giannis got injured, he got taken out, and we all immediately brushed the Bucks off. We were like, all right, Bucks are done, whatever. Giannis is done. And then Chris Middleton carried the team, and they won that game. Like so, I agree that he has issues with that, but I think he has more consistently good games than Paul George.
I think Kevin just loves Paul George more than he loves Chris Middleton. I think that's what this is.
And also to that point, Kevin, I don't know if that's true. I think it's more on Giannis being really bad. Like that was just really bad. Like that was horrible what Giannis did in the playoffs. Like that was like embarrassing to that point for like an MVP caliber player. I know he got injured, but I'm just saying in terms of the series, he was not doing good at all. We just know his game is too predictable because he drives and his handle's not that great. I mean, he's tall. He's a really tall dude. But I do give respect because, Milwaukee vibes all day. Chris Middleton, fix your teeth for once. Goddamn, you got the bag. Please fix it.
Please fix it. All right.
Well, that James Harden, yeah.
Oh, my God. So that was our list. We're going to go over our snubs. I just want like everybody to go over their number one snub really quickly. So let's start off with John.
My, I would say this was tough to say like the number one, but I guess mine would. I would probably say Bam Adebayo. It's like kind of a toss-up for me between Bam and Ben Simmons, who I both thought, like for me, I think Ben Simmons is a defensive player of the year candidate and a really unique guy who's definitely contributing to like a great Philadelphia season and is totally worthy, but he'd be listed as a guard. There's like no spot that's not deep really, but like I just couldn't, for me, I couldn't make room. And Bam, I love Bam. We all know I love Bam. I think Bam's incredible. I just think I had to put Rudy Gobert because, like Sam said before, I think that Rudy Gobert might actually be the most impactful player on that Jazz team. He's just like an otherworldly defensive player. His impact on that end is like it's just like it's monstrous. It's huge. He's a big reason why they're as good as they are. And so I had a hard time leaving him off. But with that said, Bam Adebayo is incredible. He's taken a leap as a scorer. He's able to score in more ways than he could before. He's a great passer still. And he's a really switchable defender, which is awesome as a center. That's something that's like so like huge. So I love Bam. But I just had to put Gobert on there. It also hurt my feelings to leave off Jimmy Butler, but the injuries and well, it wasn't even injuries, it was COVID. But like, right. But I love Jimmy. Shouts to Jimmy.
Yes. Kevin?
I was gonna kind of throw Jimmy in there, but injuries are tough, and so there wasn't any way I could put him on there. Julius Randle, I think, deserves to be in the conversation, like on Sam's list. Trying to think who else, and then Levine. I know we all didn't put Levine on there, and you did, Matt, but I think I couldn't put him on there with how many good guards there are.
I get it.
But he's worth discussing. He's doing phenomenal this year, and I think that deserves recognition. And I'm glad to see the Bulls finally on like Bleacher Report highlights for the first time in years, it feels like. It's nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam?
Man, this is tough. There's a lot of I just realized how fortunate we are to have this many great players for the next 5-10 years. It's gonna be really good. I know I disrespected Mitchell. Obviously, I think he could. I mean, he'll probably actually get third team All NBA. The guards list is just really tough too. I think even Devin Booker could make it. I'm gonna do some stretches here. It's gonna be some real stretches here. Russell Westbrook, triple-double, 21, 11, 11. I mean, I know it's the Wizards, but I actually think I would rather have him than Bradley Beal.
Really?
I just think Bradley Beal is actually just Trae Young. It's just older Trae Young at this point, and no one plays defense, right? If we just score 35 points, we call it a day. I just don't think that Bradley Beal gets the dub, which is kind of stupid to say, but I mean, does Russell Westbrook get it? I don't really think so, but I just think in terms of triple-double, Russell Westbrook, we wrote him off, and I think he's still playing pretty well for the 19 and 33 Wizards. Another one, DeRozan. I think we talked about before, just not enough love for him. And what would be fun to see is him and Kyle Lowry go somewhere in free agency, as the duo. Head to California, have a good time. We'll just see there. Last thing, disappointing player of this season / last season. I think Pascal Siakam. I think he's actually just fallen off. It's really sad. I mean, he's been having, flares with, with the coach. I already forgot his name because you don't win championships anymore. But it's really disappointing because I'm pretty sure even last season, Matt, Kevin, I think we talked about how we wanted Pascal to be the next level because Kawhi's gone. It's finally your show. And everyone else on that team is doing way better than him. Fred VanVleet's found a role. Kyle Lowry has his spurts. Norm Powell when he was there. I mean, it's just a real shame, and I don't think he'll be there. I think he will be on the trade block soon.
Yeah, you know what? I was gonna honestly say Fred VanVleet, but he hasn't had a kid, so I can't. I mean, I get it. You got to be safe. You got to be safe, right? I do the obvious one is Jimmy Butler. The obvious one is him. I might throw Ben Simmons in there. The dude is just such a phenomenal defender. I mean, he can guard almost anybody in this league. I might argue that he can guard anybody in this league. Mm-hmm. He's just such a great player, but again, the guards are practically stacked. It's hard to throw him in there when you have all of these really, really good players. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to the show. This has been the Deep 3 podcast. This was our all NBA list and snubs. You guys can find us on Instagram and on Twitter at the Deep 3 Pod, as well as email deep3pod@gmail.com. You guys can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Share, subscribe. Thank you guys so much, and have a good day. Peace.
I love you guys.